Hey guys, it's Robin, our Silent Crafts. Welcome to my craft room. This is it. This is our final week and we will have finished our floral heart embroidery pattern designed from Jessica Anderson from cutesy-crafts.com. If you've missed any of these little tutorials we've been doing with the embroidery, you can go ahead and check up here. Go ahead and check up at the top there in the iCard, and I'll go ahead and put the link up for the playlist so you can see whichever ones you missed. Today we're just going to go ahead real quick and start with this guy over here just to make sure that we've done this one. Like I said, I can't remember. There's so many on here. I don't remember if I showed you or not. Many times I do go back and watch my own videos, especially if I forget how to do something. I mean, how cool is that I've already got it there so I don't have to worry about remembering it. I can just go back and check it out. So for this one I am using DMC 472. It's basically, I think, a celery color. It's a nice green. I thought it would be nice contrast to the other greens that are already here. I already did the stem stitch. I am using 3 strands as stated in the pattern. Plus last week I told you I kind of like the way it looks with 3 strands. So I have my basic stem stitch. And then all these little pine needle looking things are just straight stitches. So you just come up in one spot and go down in the next. You can go all the way down one side and up the other, or you can go back and forth like I tend to do. Sometimes I change things up and I do both of them. When you're putting this many stitches onto a pattern, onto a canvas, you kind of start playing games with yourself just to keep a little bit interesting. I know I got some shadows today. It's a little bit hard to see, but don't worry, because when we get over to the important stuff, I'll make sure. Yep, see, look, I'm changing. I'll make sure you're going to be able to see everything you need. But right now, I am just tracing over that line. I'm going up at one point of it and down the other, just enough to cover the line. These are quick and simple. It's a good way to build up the confidence that you're actually getting it down there onto your fabric, and it is looking nice, and when you're done it actually looks like what it was meant to look like. So there, that's it for that leaf. I'm going to go ahead and finish off this thread, and then we'll go ahead and move to the bottom and work on our knots. So I'm going to put Colonial knots inside this little round donut hole, the center of the flower. And I've decided to do it in this color pink, number 818. I am using, what did I decide to do? I'm using all 6 strands of floss on it. But when I pulled this out, there was this extra piece of floss that was already wrapped around, and that's just what I do with my leftover. If you decided to split it into 3, I would just take my leftover of, I've got the 3 here and I already used the 3. I just kind of hold it down with my thumb and I just wrap it back around the little cardboard here, and then just tuck the end in. And then I can put it away and use it for the next project. Now, if I only had something, I tend not to save anything less than 6 inches, unless it's a special floss that costs a little bit more than just your basic DMC, or if it's a color that I haven't been able to find before and I'm at the really end of it and I want to save it. Generally, anything under 6 inches gets put into my scrap container, and I save that for future art type projects and not embroidery. Alright, so I'm going to bring back our little practice thing here to work on our Colonial knots. Let's just go ahead and make a couple dots so that we can work on it out here in the open. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and come up at our little dot wherever we want our knot to be. When we're working and filling in the center here and doing our flower, we're just going to kind of figure out where they go on the fly. But for this one, like when we do all the little circle dots all around, we're putting them in specific spots. So when we did our French knots, we took our little needle and we took our floss and we wrapped it around it 2 or 3 times and then went through and pulled it tight. But for a Colonial knot, what you're going to do is you're making a backward C. You put your needle underneath here and then you wrap it around once. You kind of snug it up a little bit, and then you go next to the spot you were at. And same thing as when we did our French knots, we're going to hold it here, and we're going to pull it through, and it gives us a nice tight little knot there. So let's try that one more time. We're going to come up here. We form our backward C. Take our needle and we go underneath. So we're going over this part and underneath here. Then we can wrap our end around it there and we go right next to it. And just pull it through. Like I said, they tend to stay when we're doing it on our project and we're really working hard at it. They're going to tend to stay in one spot. Sometimes French knots, they'll come out a little bit like this and they'll start hanging and dangling. But when you make your colonial knots, they tend to stay right where they're supposed to and they behave themselves. I've seen many projects where they've done, and like this entire heart was just filled in with the French knots is what most people do. And I really like those projects, and eventually that's what I'm going to do, something with just full of knots. That just shows how much I really enjoy doing the knots. A lot of people really just dislike doing the knots completely. But I find them enjoyable. Once I learned them and got a little bit of practice with them, I found that I really like them. So what I'm going to do with here in our little circle flower donut, say that 3 times fast, I'm just going to come up in the center. And it wouldn't be today without having this tangled. There we go. Then you can also, instead of doing the backwards C, you could just take your needle and swipe here so that you're underneath. See how the floss is going on my needle? So I'm going over and under, and then I go over. Then I'm just going to tug out of the picture here on this piece that you can't see. And as I just pull this down, and my knot's going to go nice in place. And it's going to sit there nice, and it's going to be sitting straight up. It's not going to be falling over to the side. And then maybe I'll just put one over here. So I scooped it, wrapped it around, and I go down. And what I want to do is I want to just try to make sure that all my knots are touching. So depending on where I put my first stitch is where I'm going to put my second. Now I have a little bit of a white space right here between this knot and the edge of my flower, so I'm going to pop a little knot there. So I do my backward C. I'll just alternate between the 2 different styles. Go underneath, wrap it around, and then I'll put the other side over here to get my knot to lay where I want it to. You can line these all up nice and neat in a row if you were doing that type of a design, or you can just go all crazy and put them wherever. So we scoop under and wrap around. So we got that basic little infinity design going there with our floss. So that's just how we fill these in. It's another meditative stitch that you just kind of like zone out while you're doing it. As you can see, I'm not speeding it up. I'm standing up right now working on a table with my stand. So this is about just an average speed of making the knots. You can hear my voice, it's not sped up, so these can go pretty quick. Then as you're going, just kind of look. I can see over here that there's a white space. So I'll just stick a little knot over there and fill that spot in. Using the pink like this, it makes it look like little roses. And then we just go ahead and fill all the way through and just work like that. Now I'm going to go ahead and stop here. I'll finish this off so you can see it, but then I want to show you how to do the other flower. I've chosen to use Iris 826 for the knots over here. This is just, as far as I know, it's just a Michaels brand of floss. So you can buy one of those packages that have like 24, 36 different skeins of floss in it. So that's just what I'm going to use over there. I don't always know colors. I kind of just go, I think this needs a little bit of this color in this section, so let me choose that. Now I don't have you super zoomed in, so you can still see what's going on. I'm sorry if in the first half of this video I haven't checked yet, but I had my tabletop fan on that I forgot to turn off, because even though we are coming at the end of November, it is still kind of hot down here in Florida. We're having weird weather. So with this flower, you can't really tell on this one, but what I did is I did this whole center line, and then I just filled in half, and I filled in half. See, we'll start back here, and we're just going to make a line of our knots, our little soldiers going. So I got the backward C, I go under, and as you notice, I'm only wrapping it around my needle once, where when you're doing French knots, they say you can go 2 or 3 times. I've not seen any tutorials and videos for the Colonial knots where they said that they've wrapped it more than once. So now wherever my knot went down, I went to the next space over. As you lay it down like this, after a while it just naturally lays that way. And I just stick my needle through there, wrap it around. Then I'm going to go in this direction and just go down in the next section up. Maybe it's just like 1/8 of an inch or so up. And as I put the knots along the edge, it will fill it in. So I just go next to that one. And since I pull my arm, I'm right-handed, I pull my arm to the right, I just let the floss lay down that way so I can scoop under, wrap around, tighten it up, and then I'm just going to go a little bit next to it, a couple threads over, I think is what they call it. See how I'm not having to worry about holding my knot super, super tight like we do when we do the French knots? Make sure I don't have any extra floss on the back. Just slide it under. It's got my backward C automatically. Wrap it over the top once and then go down next to it. I'm not trying to draw on a straight line. See, I already have a little bit of a white spot there, but when I come in and work on the other sides, it'll fill it in. If I needed these to be in a perfectly straight line, I would definitely want to draw that line and make sure I'm coming up on the line when I'm making my first stitch, and that I'm going down on the line with my second. Now this is pulling in my floss right down through the center, and then it just locks it down, and it makes that little flower bud shape. I just like the way the Colonial knot, I like the way it looks. I like how easy and quick it is. Whoops. Got tangled up on my little screws over here. I like how easy it goes down. I like how it lays flat. Well, not flat because it's above the surface, but I like how it doesn't fall over to the side. It stays upright. And then I'm just going to choose where I put it down so that I'm filling in the spaces. So I come up in this little white spot here, make my little knot. Maybe I'll go down to the outside this time versus in the straight line this way. I'm going to go out to the side so I know I'm filling that area. Look, I didn't even hold it, and it just slides down nicely. And if I stop getting myself tangled on the back side here, let's find a spot in a white area that I want to put one. Make my little knot. Find another white spot to put it down. Now I have a white spot here. If I wanted to fill it, I can go ahead and I come up in here. Let's see what it looks like if we stack these on top of each other a little bit. So this time I pushed my floss out of the way. I wrapped it around. We'll go a little 3D on it. Whoop. My knot got a knot. Yeah, that just makes it stand out just a little bit on top, but I filled in that white spot so I know I won't have any white glaring through. If you were worried, you can find a colored pencil or a crayon the same color as your floss, and you could color in that area before you start doing your knots, and then you wouldn't have to worry about it. And that's all these sections are, is when you're filling it in. Just wherever it feels like it needs to have a little flower bud, just add it in. One more, and then I'll bring you back when it's all said and done. Because this is it. This is our last stitch that we need to put on here. And it's all finished. So give me a second, I'll be right back. As you're making these knots, you might think, well, I have to make a lot of knots. Maybe I'll get a really long piece of floss so I don't have to finish it off and start a new one. But you really don't want to have to worry about wear and tear on your floss or having anything get tangled and knotted up. I would still stick with the arm's length, and if you have to start in a new one, go ahead and just start in a new one. It's not that hard to start and finish them once you've already gotten going and you're established. So it's just a lot easier to do that. Now if you wanted to, you can mix 2 different colors in here. You could put 2 different colors in your needle itself, or you can just add different colored knots. You might want to put some white ones in there for highlights, or some yellow or black, anything. It's your design, remember. Once you get it down here, how you choose to do it is totally up to you. That's it. It's done. As a little bit of a reminder, this is where we started, and this is the way it looks now. Let's go ahead and get this out of the hoop. Now, of course, we're going to need to go ahead and press this out and get this all nice and neat. But this is what our little heart looks like. When you're looking at the original here, you can see the heart shape, but you're kind of like, oh, yeah. But then once you get all your different colors on, and it does look like a nice little flower garden. So let's go ahead and look at the back. Now the back's not too bad. You can see a lot of the places where I've tied off, and I did take, when I was doing my little French knots here, these yellow ones, I did go ahead and travel with them, as you can see. Every time I left a little section, I went and tied them off, and then I just traveled. But I'm going behind all the threads that are already there, not into any of this white open space. And I have my interfacing here to help hide all those colors. Once I get it all set together and on fabric and get it all quilted, you're not going to see that at all. I think this one I'm going to want to quilt all the way around it and make this white part quilted tightly, where my other ones I let it kind of stay puffy. I want to make this design pop up and have this all nice and flat around it. I'm not sure what color I'm going to use for the frame of it. I'm sure once I start auditioning fabrics, I'll find something that works really well. This is going to once again just turn into a quilted wall hanging. I really enjoy doing it that way versus just getting a wooden hoop and putting it in the wooden hoop. And now that's a fine way to do it. And the wooden hoops, when they stain them or paint them, look really well. When you hang your wooden hoop, you're going to hang it on a hook or a nail or a thumbtack or something. And I know me, no matter where it is in my house and what wall it's on, the wooden hoop things tend to get knocked off. Either the wind knocks them off, or I bump it, or I hit it with something. And ultimately, I'm a quilter, so I want to go ahead and have this as a quilt. It kind of looks nice with purple around it, so maybe I'll audition some purple fabrics. It'd be really nice if I could find, I don't have it in my stash, but some type of a fabric with a whole bunch of little flowers that go all the way around. That might make it pop a little. It's just going to be folding it down and just laying it down on top of fabric and auditioning it. But thank you guys for hanging out with me in this hand embroidery series. I had a lot of fun working on it. I hope you guys have learned a few things. I know most of you are really busy now, but these will be sitting in a playlist. So 3 weeks, 3 months, 3 years from now, you'll be able to come back and pull these tutorials up and see the different stitches. I've been trying to put the name of the stitches that I work on in the title of the video, so it'd be really easy to find. Look through the playlist or go ahead and search it on my YouTube channel and they'll pop right up. I'm not worried about my back. I mean, I would never put this on the front side of it, but I just like all the hard work and the color. And when you see that back there, it just kind of makes the front look even that much nicer. So now that this series is done, I'm going to be able to start a new series. Everyone has been waiting for me to do the miter square blanket, the knitting ones with the little squares that I've been doing. So that's going to be my next series coming up, in addition to any of the other tutorials that I make with sewing and quilting. So once again, thanks for hanging out with me, and I'll see you next time. Bye!